Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to start the process of creating my cup kit, meaning creating the harness and everything like that, and then putting it together and installing it on the car. This will be my first time doing this, so it'll be somewhat of a DIY. I will not show you guys how to make the harness, but I will show you guys how to install the cup kit, since there doesn't seem to be much in the form of DIYs online in forums or on YouTube for the NSX. So again, I'll skip over the making the harness, but I will show, once I do how to make the harness, I will show you guys how to do this. So right here is basically a partial Stancepart kit. I think it's just pieced together by my buddy Dennis. Shout out to him. Thanks for getting this all for me. Basically it's a Stanceparts. These are the cups. These are the shorter springs, KW springs that you need, since these go on top of your existing springs and take up some space. You need shorter springs so you still have room for everything on your suspension system. This is a solenoid valve and T-fitting that controls air to the cups. Provided air lines, again Viair 1.5 gallon tank with a compressor. And if you haven't seen the cup kit, so this is upside down, but essentially your spring sits in here. This is flipped over, and once air is provided through this fitting, this blue piece slides up and down. This is lubricated inside, and this is the stopper C-clip. It slides up and down and expands, and then air bladder, I think, inside, allowing you to raise your car. So that's essentially it. The way Stanceparts provides the instructions, if I can show you guys, they provide it to where the most basic installation. So basically, I won't show you, go over every bit in detail of how this is working, but once you key on the power, since your pressure switch is source to keyed power, that means your compressor is getting power essentially once you turn your key to ignition 2. So one thing we're going to do is install a switch to allow the pressure switch to only get power when I want it to. And second, we're going to also install a solenoid to let us remotely drain the tank. So, as you may or may not know, the way these compressors work is it gets air from the environment, so it's going to get moisture in naturally. And all tanks have a drain valve on the bottom, which you need to let the moisture out that builds up. Otherwise, you risk your tank rusting from the inside and possibly catastrophic failure and your tank exploding, worst case when there's a lot of rust. So, that's going to be mounted. I'm going to mount it in the front, but it's going to be really hard to reach by hand. So we're going to use this electronic solenoid, attach it with fittings, and use a separate button to actuate that. So we're essentially adding 2 more functions that Stanceparts does not show you how to do in their manual. So I'll show you how to do all of that once I have everything built and put together for you guys. Okay, really quick, if you ended up with this setup, the same setup that I have right here, and you want to do the remote solenoid, I'll put the link for this in the description. I picked this up off of Amazon, but you need this purchased separately, and also this elbow purchased separately. This elbow does not come with this or anything else, but this elbow is used to attach the solenoid to the bottom of the tank. And also the Viair compressor comes with this 1/2 inch to press fit hose adapter, whereas I wanted to use the push to connect. So I had to purchase this guy separately, 1/2 inch NPT to 1/4 inch outer diameter push to connect. So I think I purchased that off of Amazon as well. Here is the brand. Again, I'll link all of these in the description. So okay, again, I'm not going to show you guys how to make the harness because it's going to be very complicated, but I purchased everything that I think I need. Here's the 40 amp relay for the kit. This is a tap for fuses for power, for 12-volt power that you're going to need. You know, you're going to need your shrink wrap, your wire cutters, strippers. I have my fuses here, connectors, my switch. I have a couple switches. This is going to be a switch to power the cup kit, and then this is going to be this is a 3-position switch, so that I can do one turn on the compressor, middle position be off, or downward position actuate the drain, and then have terminals, things like that. This is a 4-pin connector. This is 2-pin connector. Soldering iron, you know, helping arms, wiring, and some loom right here. So hopefully it all goes to plan. As of right now, I have not done any of it yet or tested it, so I'm gonna go ahead and test that out right now, and then hopefully everything works, and I'll show you guys as I put together a mock-up of the wiring. Okay, this is an explanation of the wiring diagram that I created for my particular setup. This is for a 1.5 gallon front mounted tank with an electronic drain valve, as well as 2 switch operation, one being a 3-position switch to activate the compressor on, off, and drain, electronic drain. And the other switch is a 2-position switch for activating the cups. So if you want to know how this all functions, start first at this accessory power source. So once you switch to this first line, which feeds the pressure switch, you're going to be connecting accessory power source to this first line that runs all the way up to the pressure switch. It's going to go run in and then run out to the relay, to position 86 on the relay, which is going to be directly across from 85. And once those two are powered, it's going to close the switch on the relay connecting 87 and 30. 30 is going to be connected to the 25 amp out of circuit fuse connected to your fuse box in the front bay, and that's in turn going to, once the relay is connected, powered on by the accessory power source, it's going to connect through 87 to the compressor tank, and the compressor tank is grounded, so that's going to basically turn on the compressor tank. So when you switch the 3-position switch to this first wire with accessory power, it's going to effectively turn on the compressor. The middle position is off. That's when, if you understand how a 3-position switch works, either connecting it to one side, one pin, one left pin, the right pin, or the middle pin. Middle pin means you're not connecting either side to accessory power, so that's off. The third pin on the right side is going to be connected to the electronic drain valve. So the drain valve at the top is grounded all the time. So once you connect the power source to the right side of the pin, right side of the switch, it's going to close the circuit and tell your drain valve to power on. The reason for doing this with the accessory power is because it's precisely the reason why you want this, is you don't want the compressor to turn on immediately when you turn on your car. So if you hook it up the way Stanceparts tells you, they want you to hook it up without the switch, just directly to accessory power, meaning your compressor is going to turn on right when you get to key power 2 before you even turn your engine on. So with this switch, you're able to disconnect the accessory power and connect it whenever you want. Moving on to the LED push button switch, which activates the cup. I hooked that up to a 12-volt source because the purpose of that is because I want to be able to air up or down with the car off. So for example, if I'm working on the car and I want to raise it up because I want to fit a jack underneath, then I'm able to give power to the cups and go up or down, independent of the car being on or off. So 12-volt power source powering the three-way valves, and this is the three-way valves. One is grounded and one is just connected to the switch. Doesn't matter which pin is which, but that's just going to tell your cup to go up or down. If you press a button in, it's going to air up. You press it again, it's going to release the air and air down. So that is essentially it. That's just a quick run through, and so you'll see the green side is the cabin side. These 3 wires then be running through the firewall, through that grommet into the cabin, and the blue side is the underhood side. So you'll see me mentioning all these wires in the video. I will post a link to this image in the description, or you can feel free to pause the video here and take a screenshot. Alright, so after I confirmed everything works, guys, I'm going to show you how to hook up the drain valve. So besides just putting on the elbow fitting on the drain valve, you have to disassemble it in order to screw it on. So you have to take off this 17mm nut, and this whole black piece pulls off, and you're able to kind of rotate everything on in this confined space. After that, how it's wired up is that you use the 2 sides like this, one labeled 1 and 2 opposite of each other, and you ignore the 3rd post down there. So one's power and one's ground. I don't think it matters either way. You can flip them, but so you just my wires are short because I'm gonna hook up a kind of quick release plug for these 2. So in case I have to remove the compressor, that's going to be a theme for this install. I'm gonna have a quick release plugs for these plugs and for the plugs coming off of the compressor. That way, if I need to change my battery, I can just unplug them and take them out. That's big thanks to Nemo for all of this information and all of the tips and tricks and the help doing this. So this is how he does it. He wires in plugs of his own for exactly this purpose. So that's why these are cut short, and just gonna wire these in and plug it in now. All right, so I have it all assembled. And the rubber grommet goes on here. That's pretty important because this is gonna be sitting low, and hopefully this will help keep moisture, rainwater out of this plug. And I forgot to tell you earlier that you have to disassemble this to get this off, and it's just being held in by a little Phillips screw that goes in the back like this, and through the center on the side right there. So that's how it's held on. And so the way this goes back together is the rubber grommet goes in first in this cylinder hole, and the washer on top, and then this piece over the top of that, and then of course the screw into the side. All right, I got this plug all wired in. Really easy to use. You just crimp these male and female pieces onto the wire, and you shove them in the back of this, and this piece actually is what holds the terminal in place. They call these the locks. So there's one green one for the male side and orange one for the female side, and so these terminals are just gonna go in like that. That's how it makes connection. Really nice. And then first time using this braided line too, comes with the heat shrink tube. So it looks really nice and clean. I'm very happy. So I'm gonna have this maybe go through the side, and so have a nice clean install. All right, guys. So here's the harness that I made. Obviously your results and routing of everything is going to vary depending on how you do it. But this is essentially, again, including the drain, remote drain, and the so remote drain / purge of the tank, and a separate switch for turning on and off the compressor. So these two wires are going to go to the 3-way valve, which is going to be mounted right there. So these wires will tuck through back here. And then all these 3 are going to go down here. These 3 are going to go down to the compressor, both gray plugs. The 4-pin goes to the compressor and pressure switch, and the 2-pin harness goes to the drain valve. And the ground is just going to ground right on the battery right there. And then this piece is the 12-volt source. So this is going to go straight across into the fuse box, and this is going to tap into the unused. So this is an unused port, and there's unused port fuse. So those are both 12 volts, so you can tap into either one. So I'm going to plug it in there and wire it and run the cable out through this hole in the cover. And then the long harness right here is going to tuck in back through there, and right in through there, that hole right there, that is a grommet I pushed through already. So it's just a blank grommet, and so I'm going to poke a hole through that grommet and fish the wire through, and that's how I'm going to get in to the dashboard. And so these 3 wires, one is going to be going to the 3-way valve, which is essentially going to activate the cups, air them up or down. One is going to be for the drain, purge of the tank, and the other is going to be on and off for the compressor. So a quick tip, this is how I'm going to get the wires through. It's not hard, I could actually probably fish it through with my fingers, but if you want to get through a grommet or something like that, I usually just undo a wire hanger. And what I do is not tie it, but kind of cinch the wires down by crimping down the hanger onto the wires. And so now I'm just going to be able to fish it through. And now I just need to make sure it has a clear path. And I have the interior part. And you can see that I just need to pull on this wire, and the wire will come through that hole where you see the light coming through. Okay, so this is how you're going to route the cabin harness. It's coming off of the relay right here and going behind these wires through the interior right back there. And this wire you see in front is the power wire. So that is also coming down off of the relay, and it's going to be this wire you see right here, this loom, and it's going to come through, and I'll show you how that's routed. Okay, so the power wire, this is my first harness, so I made it kind of long just to be conservative, but we're going to connect it into here, and then run the wire through, and I'm just going to loop the extra wire in here like that. I'm not going to connect the power yet because I'm going to wait till I wire everything else up first. That's going to go right in there like that. Alright, so I'm going to feed the wires through. I'm just going to go ahead and grab the wires with some pliers and shove them through like that. And you just pull it all the way through and cinch it through until you can plug up place the plug back in the firewall. Alright guys, little update. In order to access the grommet with your hand, I had to remove the cruise control brain, which sits right here, right below what I presume is the ECU. So it's just two 10mm bolts on left and right side. I did have to remove, there's one 10mm holding the ECU going straight up because it's blocking this, it's blocking that bolt going into the cruise control. So I had to remove 3 of these gold little 10mm in order to access the cruise control. So now I should be able to reach my hand back there and push that grommet in with the harness routed through the grommet, as you can see back there. You gotta take a look at what's underneath the dashboard. So you do not want to route the harness just straight through. So essentially you want to make it reach this area right here, right? You don't want to route it through here and get it in the way of this arm. This is your air mix for your heater control, hot and cold. And so right there, what's going to happen is this little gear is going to be moving and this arm is going to be moving up and down. So what I'm going to do is route the wiring up and over the bar for the dashboard, up and over the bar, and then back down this way, and hopefully right out through here. So as far as the wiring goes, I fished the loom down into this corner right here. Basically, you can either use these grabbers like I have, or you can just fish it through with the wire coat hanger like I showed you earlier to give it some shape and be able to guide it where it's going. Right now I got this through, and so the rest is extra. My harness is long because I was conservative, made it extra long. I'm going to cut some off, but what I'm going to do is actually zip tie it. I'm actually going to zip tie the harness up to this large loom, and then it's going to go over and probably zip tie it to maybe this loom as well, just so it avoids this actuator right here. All right, I got a hodgepodge of stuff going on here, but essentially I tapped into the clock harness, the yellow and white wire for the 12 volt and the full yellow wire for the accessory power. I decided not to get accessory power from one of these just because I had already cut back the loom on this one and T-tapped it, so I figured I might as well get into that one instead of cutting the loom back on these down here. So I just ran 2 wires down. And okay, so I've run all the wires, so I just need to wire up the switches now. But before I do that, I need to make the faceplate to mount the switches. So here's what I've come up with. I used a piece of Lexan, and this is thanks again to Nemo for the idea. I'm going to mount the switches in here, and so this piece will go in there like that, and I'm going to mount the switches to it, and I'm going to wrap it in some leftover Alcantara I have from my door panels. All right, here's what I have. So I kind of just cut a hole in the Alcantara in like a star shape and was able to push the buttons through. Very similar to how I did the door panels. And so there's 2 notches in each side, left and right side, so I can kind of connect with these parts of the ashtray. And then I haven't decided, it stays in pretty good as is, but I might just double sticky tape the top or build some kind of bracket in there for later. But right now, it fits in there really nicely. So pretty happy with how this turned out. All right, this is the harness for the switch. I didn't want to, but I drilled a hole through the bottom to get this through. I was trying to fish it through one of those existing holes and was just gonna mount it with 1 hole. But then I realized that it's not gonna go through the part of the dashboard that this mounts to if I do that. So there's no other way, there's no other holes in this thing. You just have to drill a hole. Well, there's a hole at the top, but then you wouldn't be able to close your lid all the way. So it's one or the other. Okay, and I just wired up the 3 wires for the 3-position switch. So these 3 wires are also going through the bottom of the ashtray into the 4-pin harness, 4-pin plug. Okay, and here's the wiring. So the 3-position switch, the blue wire I have is for the pressure switch. That basically means turn the compressor on. The black wire in the middle is the off position for the switch, which is just the 12-volt power, or sorry, accessory power. And the green wire is the purge valve or the drain valve for the lower position. So it'll be power on, off, and drain. And then this is just to air up. So air on and air down. Okay, and here is the final product. So it's just being held in here by pressure, which is pretty nice. It's not coming out. So I might stick this double sticky tape on this side, but it's not going to fall out at all. So, and here's the wires. Looks pretty good. And it still closes. A little bit of rubbing, but it's pretty good. Okay, I'm putting everything back together, and you can see here that I purposefully made these extra long harnesses so I can just lay this piece right here and then start screwing in the grounds, plugging in stuff. These factory harnesses are so short. This is how far they come. You gotta basically hold the whole console right here while you're unplugging them, so it's kind of a pain. So I'm kind of trying to fix that, at least on my side. That way I can get these plugged in, tuck them away, and then plug these OEM harnesses in while I have to hold this simultaneously. All right, so we're about to put on the cups on the suspension. So to do that, I have to remove the suspension. But before we do that, I am marking my height setting with masking tape. The reason we're doing that is because we're gonna change the spring to a shorter spring so we can, because the cup itself, the airbag, little airbag, whatever it is, it's gonna take up some space up top. And so I want to, and also I'm gonna be replacing these to new ones for personally. And so I wanna keep my height setting the same as before. All right, I'm not gonna show you guys how to remove suspension. It's pretty straightforward on this car. And I probably showed you a little bit on previous videos, but basically, you know, most people run the KWs too low, so they make contact with the arm if you're at full droop. So you need to jack up the arm, make sure you put a block underneath so you don't damage any of the aluminum, to raise it up so you gain some clearance between the perch and the arm. And quick tip for me is I always make sure this set screw is facing outwards. That's how I know how many turns I can make when I make a full revolution, and it's just easier to you know, tighten and loosen the set screw being that it's facing you, as opposed to trying to look around the corner and find out where it is so you can loosen it or tighten it. Okay, with the coilover off the car, this is the front. I loosened this 17mm stop nut. There's 2 of them. And I'm going to gun the second one off. And these are SOS top hats. And then you will just disassemble. So quick comparison of the springs. These are 60-170 I don't know what spring rate this is. You gotta do the math, but what I'm putting in is 80-140. So the second number is the length. So this is 170 millimeters, this is 140 millimeters. This is roughly 5.5 inches, the new spring. And 80, I think it's Newton meters. They do it in Newton meters or something like that. So it comes out to about 8 kilogram springs for this upgrade. Okay, so I'm gonna continue disassembling this. So I'm taking these two washers off. Looks like they're the same. And take off the dust boot. And so at this point, mine's already cut down, but I heard it's recommended to by Robert to just remove this thing because it kind of gets caught and gets smashed sometimes going up and down. So I'm just gonna go. So here's the helper spring. And me personally, I'm gonna replace these. All right, so you want to make sure you have a clean working surface. I'm gonna give this shaft a little bit of a wipe down, and I'm going to go ahead and reverse the order. So have the helper spring going in first, along with the helper spring to mainspring perch. So we're gonna put on the new spring. Okay, so with the KW suspension, this is used as kind of a bushing and sits on the bottom of the top hat, and this kind of goes on top of the spring like that. However, this piece is not gonna fit on here. This inner ring is the same diameter as this piece, so this piece is going to, in the air cup, is going to take the place of this. I suppose you could try to put this in there, but I'm not going to. Mainly because I want this spring, this affects how far the spring can sit down in there, and I want the spring to sit fully in there like that. It fits the diameter perfectly. So hopefully there's no noise. I got distracted while filming, and I forgot to put my bump stop on, so make sure you don't forget that. And then, most importantly, you need to get this inner diameter of the cup down past the larger portion of the shaft, the actual shaft, not up here. So you need to make sure that you do that. So you're gonna have to press down on the. You have to compress the helper spring, basically, just like that. So the main part of the shaft comes out. So, having that said, I'm also going to use one of these washers. Again, these washers sandwich this poly bushing. So there's one goes on the bottom, one goes on the top. I probably don't need this washer because it looks like, if you can see that, the bushing sticks out a little bit past this ring right here. But I'm gonna use it anyway, just in case. And on that note, KW provides, and they do note this in the instruction, they provide you these rings, these spacers, metal spacers. They're supposed to go on top of here, and that's only for if you have a McPherson strut suspension, because if you're not familiar, McPherson strut suspension, the knuckle turns with the coilover, with the bottom of the coilover, and it spins independently of the top hat. Obviously, your top hat is not going to be spinning because that's attached to your shock tower. So you need to make sure that your top hat has enough clearance to the cup on a McPherson suspension. But this is not a McPherson suspension setup, so we're not going to use this. We're just going to use the spacer for the top hat. And I'm going to lower the perch back down, give me more room. Don't forget the spacer on the top. Okay. good shot like that. Put the other nut on. And here you have it assembled. And so once you're assembled like this, you just need to make sure, you want to make sure your spring is sitting in the correct portion of the cup kit, of the cup. You know what I mean is it needs to sit on the outer ring on the ring basically. So you don't want the spring to be sitting like this or like this. It needs to be sitting flush like this inside this cup. So that should do it for the installation. Basically you just throw this back in the car now and you connect the air lines, and then we're going to feed the air lines through where the ABS or through where the hard brake lines are coming through the chassis from the ABS modulator. And before I put it in, here's a quick look. You can see the silver washer in the middle between the top hat and the cup kit. That's the part of the SOS kit, top hat kit. That's the same washer as this one. So it's providing a nice spacer. Again, you probably don't need that with these, but I'm just gonna do it just to be safe. Okay, so we're gonna route the line through from here through there. So I've seen people have this fitting on this side, but I feel like that's gonna be close to the tire possibly. So I might try to do it like this, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully the line can make that turn. It should. So we'll hopefully leave it like that, and I'll let you know how that goes. Okay, now that we got both cups installed, we are going to install the hoses. So we're gonna run it along the back of the firewall. In the firewall area corner, there's a hard line right there that runs all along the back of the firewall. And as you can see it right there. So that's basically going to allow us to get into, it's where this brake line is right here. Allow us to get into the fender well and hook up to the fittings on both of the cups. So those are just press fit fittings. You just insert them, but you do need to make sure that your hoses are cut straight. So it is recommended to buy a hose cutter. You do not want your hoses like this. This is how they cut it from the factory, how it's all uneven, pinched and stuff like that. If you use scissors, it's gonna get pinched. I don't have hose cutters, but I'm just gonna use a sharp razor blade and it works out fine. You can see right here, right there, I cut that one nice and straight. And so that's what you're gonna need to just insert into lines. And so those lines are going to run from the three-way valve, which is right here. And it's going to run out that straight fitting on the firewall side into this T fitting, and it's gonna go left and right into both your cups. All right, so once you have the hose cut straight, the way these fittings work is really simple. You just push it all the way in until it stops and it's tight, and the way you release it is you pull back on these ends right here. And so you pull on that and then you can release it. Very simple. And another tip, I am going to cover these ends with masking tape. That way when I'm feeding it through various areas of the car, I'm not introducing dirt and debris into these lines. All right, so how I'm doing this is I'm feeding the black hose with a white hanger. You can see right there the blue tape on the end. And then I fed it through, this is the driver's side, I'm feeding it through with my right hand and then reaching down there and pushing it down below those hard lines with my left hand. And now I'm just gonna grab this hanger and pull it along the firewall like that until it meets up with the other side. All right, so you can see that blue piece of tape back there. That's the end of the hanger with the hose, and it's running across the back. And here's the end of the hanger. And so what I'm gonna do now is attach the end of this hose. That way I don't pull it all the way through. I'm gonna yank this hanger out and then attach the T-fitting. Okay, so I purposefully made this hose longer so I could do exactly this and pull it out here, so it's easier to access. And I'm gonna cut off the extra tubing in the fender well side on the driver's side. So I pull this all the way through. I'm gonna take off the tape and then I'm going to attach it to the T-fitting. All right, so this part's not the easiest to show you, but I fed the short hose, 9-inch hose that's gonna go to the 3-way valve. I was holding it with my left hand. That way I don't have to hold onto the actual fitting and drop it. And then I reached in through the top and grabbed the passenger side hose, which is the shorter end. I didn't cut that one longer, and I pushed it into the fitting. So now with the longer hose of the right side, I can bend it around and just use by feel. I can't even see it right now, but just shove it into the T-fitting till it stops. All right, so now you can see that it's kind of bent up like that, and what I'm gonna do is pull it from the driver's side until it so hopefully you can see that. So now the fitting is, you can see it moving right there, the silver fitting. It's kind of behind this blower unit. I would have liked it to be more left or more towards the passenger side, but that's okay. I'm not gonna redo the whole thing. And now what I'm doing is just attaching the bottom of the hose to the 3-way fitting. So just like that. So now I'm gonna pull this hose all the way through and cut off the slack as best I can. Okay, I'm about to give you guys some measurements right now. So again, you can see back there that the T-fitting, hard to see, it's not in focus, is behind the blower unit. So I prefer it to be more that way, probably by about 2 inches. So these are my measurements right here. The passenger side hose, 14-inch, driver side is 38 inches, and the hose going from the T-fitting to the 3-way 9 inches. So if we want to subtract 2, make this 36, add 2 to the driver side, 40 inches, and subtract 2, 12 inches. This is what you guys are going to want to cut your hoses down to. So 12 inches on the passenger side, 40 inches on the driver's side, and 9 inches roughly for the 3-way valve. Of course, it's going to depend on where you mount your valve. If you mount in the same exact spot as I do, then that's what you're going to need. So here's the bracket that I made for the 3-way valve. Simple aluminum bracket. Since there's a couple of places to mount down here, here and there, but it's only one hole, so I decided to have this little 90-degree piece coming off of here so it can keep it from tilting, and it works pretty good, nice and strong. Super strong. Okay, now it's time to mount the tank. And so they give you all of this hardware right here, which is some bolts, grommets, and some inner bushings for the grommet. So you're going to push these bushings in, these grommets, after you insert the grommets into place. So I'm going to insert these grommets in, then I'm going to mark where to drill the holes into this plate down here. Okay, these grommets are pretty hard to get in, so I'm going to show you guys how I'm doing it. If you put some lubrication on there, probably help, but what I do is grip it and just deform it like this. It's tough, it's not going to break. And shove one edge in, hold it with your fingers like that, and then grab some pliers, and then just carefully start feeding in one side. You don't want to tear it, obviously, but it's pretty thick. And then just go around and feed it in. All right. There you go. And after that, okay, with all the grommets in place, I'm gonna just go ahead and put these in because it's meant to fit these screws anyway. Okay, we're just about on the last part, which is mounting the tank. So this part, you got to do some cutting and drilling. If you look at where the tank is mounted right now, it's pretty much where it needs to go. There's just enough space on the left and right to clear the hoses, and the front and back to clear the radiator fan shroud and the battery. And the issue right now is the studs. There's studs that stick out, as you can see here, of the bottom tray. That's what your spare tire bracket mounts to. So unfortunately, this is the perfect place to put it. You can't shift the tank left or right from passenger side or driver side because it's just gonna contact one of these hoses. So there's no way around it unless you build some type of adapter bracket. The problem with an adapter bracket is these studs are so short that you would have to build an adapter bracket with like built-in studs into it, essentially, if that makes sense. Because if you build an adapter bracket to go on over these studs, the places where you put the bolts, where you're gonna need to put the bolts, are gonna be exactly over those studs. And you know, these studs will not be long enough to protrude through the top of the grommet of the tank bracket. So what we're gonna have to do right now is cut off the top of these studs and drill completely through them into the bottom, straight through the bottom of this, so we can get some bolts through it. Also, as you can see, the studs don't line up exactly with the holes. So I'm going to trace onto a piece of cardboard the spacing of the tank bracket, and then I'm gonna mark this bracket on the bottom, this piece on the bottom, mark where I need to drill, so you'll see that. Okay, what you're gonna see me do right now is cut these two studs out. Okay, so change of plan. I was going to just scribe marks on the aluminum plate based on a cardboard template I made, but okay, so what I'm going to do instead is just mark with grease directly onto the bracket. So I have a greased up bolt right here, and I'm going, okay, now dropped in the second bolt and with grease on it, and then we'll take out the bolt in the tank and see where it's marked. You're also going to want to do the driver's side. This is the driver's side, and you're going to end up drilling on like a little hump on the bracket. So on this side you're going to drill on a hump, and on the passenger side there's spacers, which I didn't mention to you yet. So there's 3/4 inch thick spacers, and I'll give you the spec for that in a second. but I'm gonna mark this side as well while I have the tank in place. I want to make sure that they are straight. Looks like I could push both of them slightly to the left, so slightly to our left. That way this hole is more on top of the hump instead of off to the right side. And this is going to come over slightly to the left and line up more with this hole, with this stud right here. This one's going to be interesting because it's kind of offset of this stud. So hopefully I can drill it straight through and not get caught up on anything, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, here are the metal spacers you need for the passenger side to mount the tank, since the plate is uneven. They are 3/8 inch thick, which is the important part. The other important part is the inner diameter, which is 1/4 inch, or needs to be able to fit an M6 bolt. The outer diameter that I have is 1/2 inch, but if I were to buy these again, I would probably buy like 1 inch or more diameter spacer, just so there's more surface area. This one is not very wide, so I'd probably buy 1 inch outer diameter. And then again, this is 3/8 inch thick with a 1/4 inch inner diameter. So here is where the brackets, the spacers go. That's because part of the tank is being mounted on this hump area right here, and we need to have it leveled out. Okay, I got the tank mounted up, as you can see, with the spacers in place. So this is why I say I would have used a wider outer diameter. These 1/2 inch spacers, I would have used like 1 inch or so. I think that would have covered the entirety of the rubber, so you have more surface area of the rubber bushing. But anyway, this will do for now. Maybe I'll replace those in the future. So I ended up using the Viair hardware that they provide for you, and just inserted the spacers in there. Now it's secure, and I just need to connect all the connectors, and should be done. Okay, with the tank in place, we're gonna route these lines behind this, tuck them in there, right down in there. We're going to connect the ground. And then we will connect the 2-pin connector to the drain and the 4-pin connector. Okay, and last but not least, just connect the hose from the tank to the 3-way valve, and this hose is 15 inches long. Of course, yours will vary depending on where you mount your 3-way valve. Finally, the other step was not last but not least, connect the power that comes from your relay. So I have the power again. So again, I have the power running from below here, behind these pieces. I have this power plugged into this. You look, it's plugged into this empty spot right here. And I'm just gonna route this. I made mine extra long just because I didn't know how long these make these wires at first. So instead of cutting it, I'm just gonna wrap it around like this. Make sure this is in. And these are 25 amp fuses. All right, and that is done. So I already tested this, it works, but next I'm gonna show you how it's set up to work with all the buttons and everything like that, and what it looks like going up and down. All right guys, and that is completion. So I am gonna show you now how this all works. First of all, my tank is empty, so I'm gonna switch switch the 3-position switch to the compressor on position. Compressor is going to be turned on. It's very quiet. So hopefully you can hear that the compressor is on. So I'm just gonna let that run. It's going to, the pressure sensor is going to hit a maximum pressure and then switch the compressor off. So I'll get back at you guys when it's off, when it's full. Okay, the compressor has stopped, so that means it's full. So I'm going to go ahead in here, and this is going to be the activator cup. So the way I have it set up is the light is off when it's off and light is lit when it's on. So I'm going to press that. So the way it works is it's going to stay up as long as that switch is on. So the 3-way valve is holding pressure to the cups until I hit the button again, and then it's going to release pressure. So speaking of, this this knob controls the speed at which air gets delivered to your cup kits, to your cups, therefore regulates the speed of you going up. The brass adjustment knob controls the speed releasing from your cups, therefore controls the speed at which you drop. So I have this, I have it set, you know, pretty fast going down and moderate speed going up. The idea behind that is just because I don't want to wear out the seals on the suspension. I'm sure suspension is used to compressing fairly quickly, but in terms of rebounding, I wanted to make it go a little bit slower. So here the button is lit, so that means I know it's up. I'm gonna hit it. You can hear the air releasing, and it's already dropped. So the 1.5 gallon tank is good for about up and down twice before it turns back on. And so right about now, I'm going to explain to you the reasons why I hooked it up the way I did. Meaning, with the keys out of the ignition, there's no power to the compressor. Actually, no drain either. And you can't, but because this right side is hooked up to accessory power, the cup side is hooked up to 12-volt power. So the point of that is, in case I need to, I'm working on my car, for example, and I want to raise my car up instead of use ramps now, I can go ahead and use this. So I'm sure you can hear my car is off. And so that's the point of doing that. So like I said, it's good for up and down twice before the compressor kicks on. So I can do this up and down twice before I have to turn on the car in order to fill the compressor back on. So the whole point of hooking up this switch in the first place is because I wanted to have the compressor be able to switch on when I want. If you do it by the book, they tell you to hook up the compressor directly to accessory on, meaning anytime you put your keys on, and even when you get to position 2, before you even start the car, if your pressure sensor senses too low pressure, it's going to turn your compressor on before your car even turns on. Remember, if you get to accessory 2, before you even crank it, past accessory 2, your compressor is going to turn on. So that's bad news if you have a low battery. A lot of NSX guys don't drive their car often. So this is a switch to basically turn it on and off. So compressor on, off, and drain. And so basically, when I get in the car every day, I'm going to flip this switch on and basically drive my car with the compressor on so it fills up as needed. And then every time I park my car, I'm going to switch it off and have the compressor off. So it's gonna be, we'll see how that goes as far as livability. but that's how I'm going to do it because I don't drive my car that often either. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how the drain works. So since the drain is again connected to accessory power, I just need to do accessory 2, and I will drain it, and you'll hear basically a purge, like a NOS purge. So that's that valve at the bottom of the tank purging. So that's quite handy, so you don't have to reach on the very bottom to evacuate all the moist air and all the moist water and everything like that, so it keeps your tank from rusting out. But that's the setup. So I hope you guys like it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching. So I put this ruler here, and you would have seen that I went from 3.5 inches of clearance to about 6 inches of clearance, gaining 2.5 inches of clearance from stock height, or from height that I am currently. So again, thanks for watching. I'm really happy how this turned out. Since it was my first time, it took a really long time. It took me about 4 different days of working about 4 to 6 hours each day, making the harness from scratch and trying to troubleshoot and figure out how long to make each wires and all that stuff. So I'll have all that information for you in the description, so be sure to check that out, and look out for the next video soon. Thanks guys.